Well, welcome to our virtual expert presentation series. Today we have Dr. Tracy Hoover from the Pennsylvania State University. Tracy?
Thank you, Teresa, and I look forward to visiting with everybody. I'm going to start out sharing just a little bit of background on my professional career and then cover three main points in the presentation. One is some advice on how to engage in research through funding and collaboration. The next is my perspective on 10 tips for success. And then the third point is some advice that's based upon my role as a faculty member, department head, and associate dean for undergrad ed on how to navigate the promotion and tenure system. So just to give you a little bit of background on myself, and I started out a long time ago wanting to be a veterinarian, like a lot of our students that I deal with in the college and as I have dealt with throughout my professional career. And so I picked up a couple degrees in animal science. Then I had a superb instructor, multiple instructors at my undergraduate school, and decided I wanted to teach in higher education. So that led me to a little bit of a change in a career path. I also found out concurrently about high school agri-science education. I was not in my high school ag science program back in the 70s, and thought I wanted to go out and actually teach high school, and that's what I did. The other thing I did after that was concurrently worked in a doctoral program in ag education, graduated, and then worked as an assistant professor at Penn State, then moved down to the University of Florida, was down there for 8.5 years, had the opportunity to move back to Penn State in an agriculture education faculty position, teaching teacher education and youth leadership development, had the opportunity to serve as department head in ag and extension education at Penn State from July of 2004 until June of 2011, where I was asked to move into the position of Associate Dean for Undergraduate Education. So that just gives you a little capstone on my background, and now I'm going to move into my first topic, which is a little bit of idea on funding. And so that would be the next slide. From a funding perspective, I had my background has really been focused on teaching and learning and youth leadership development. Over the course of my career, I collaborated with a lot of individuals and have secured about $4 million in grants and contracts to support my scholarship. Trying to give some funding suggestions, I'm going to try and approach it from a couple different points. One is, do you hold a research appointment? Holding a formal research appointment in a college of ag and life sciences takes you maybe down a different path of being able to access some resources or actually have a developed research program through your ag experiment station. If you don't, that's not a problem. It's just you may be traveling down a different path with a certain appointment versus someone who doesn't. In my background at Florida, I held a teaching and extension appointment. And at Penn State, I moved into a teaching research appointment. So I had a chance to work in both arenas, and was still able to run a scholarly program that supported my educational and outreach work. So the other thing I wanted to address related to funding suggestion is you really need to get out there and look at grant proposals. Search a bunch of different sites, NSF, NIH, USDA, some of the different industry commodity groups kick out grants, and you would really have an opportunity to use your expertise, whether it's in education or assessment, evaluation, program development, curricular development, data analysis, communication, and add to these proposals as they're being written. A lot of times I don't think that individuals maybe within our colleges or also across the college and university have an idea of the expertise that many of us would have and could contribute to their grant proposals. So one of the things that I think would be really helpful, and I sort of thought about this a little later in my life, but if you had a chance to put down your CV and with, again, guidance from your department head or other people in your department who you could ask, maybe schedule a brief appointment with the research and or extension dean and share that one-page CV, because a lot of times they're the interface for faculty in the life sciences or in the agricultural sciences where they're looking for expertise to expand and to enhance that grant application that they're working on, and handing that out using some of those key words that you've seen in the RFPs that you reviewed could really help begin to bring people together. That was one of the neatest things I could do as a department head, and what I do now as associate dean is try to connect faculty with individuals in their in the college or outside of the college to help strengthen that grant proposal. Okay, I'm going to move on to the next slide. Okay, from a funding suggestion standpoint, again, my recommendations come from doing some homework on your point and actually getting out there and learning what other individuals are doing in the different departments. And so you might be able to take some time and view other departmental faculty sites and the college research site. I went and looked at a couple, and I do this a lot, especially from an undergrad perspective, but look at other colleges and universities who have food, ag, and natural resources, and see what their extension, see what their research and undergraduate sites look like. From a research perspective, if your college has a pretty decent research program and department unit, you should be able to find a lot of information on that research site that would allow you to build those collaborative partnerships. The other thing that you could do, and this is something that those of you that have a research appointment, this might resonate a little bit more with, but if you're receiving funding to run your research program from federal and state sources, we have college and also multi-state agricultural experiment station projects. And I just gave you our Penn State URL here. You could actually look that up. It's going to be the same at just about every other institution that receives this type of funding. And you can begin to drill down and look at the specific projects summaries that faculty have posted on this site, along with the annual reports that are required of individuals who hold a formal research appointment. Just because you don't have a research appointment doesn't mean that you can't collaborate on these grants with individuals. And so that's something to think about too. And then the last thing I would sort of recommend on this slide would be it's really important if you have the opportunity to serve on grant review panels. So you get a chance to sit there and look at what people are putting together in grant proposals to begin to pick out those criteria of successful proposals. And again, if you don't get a grant funded, you should be getting feedback on that, and you need to try again. And not everybody gets grant funded the first time they apply for it. So that's sort of a little bit of background on that. And now I'm going to segue into my second topic, which is sort of my top 10 tips for success, or what have guided me as I've worked through my career. The first one is integrity, and integrity from that standpoint that if you remember in your any type of leadership or management courses, or if you might have attended, where we're talking about that internal compass, and you really don't want to compromise your ideals. And it's, there's a lot of statements that, can you look yourself in the mirror, or, what does your gut feel about this? And that's something that's really important, and you need to hold on to that as you go through, because you're going to have the opportunity to engage in a lot of different activities, and it's very helpful to rely on this as you move through your professional and also your personal life. The second tip goes back to more of a scholarly inquiry aspect and recommendation for faculty, that you really need to focus and develop a line of inquiry, and it needs to translate into your educational responsibilities and role. Sometimes it's easy to get distracted and to chase funding sources because that's what you have to do. But if you can sort of develop a couple themes that relate to what you're doing in outreach or in resident education, that's going to show a more comprehensive and defined type program of scholarship that extends across all three areas of your work, meaning your service and your research and your education. And so that's really important. That's one of those things that I would look for, and I do look for when I'm serving as an external reviewer and also working in my role as department head from a mentoring standpoint, and then to an associate dean level. The third tip is you really got to promote yourself. I think We tend to be pretty insular in some parts of what we do. We assume people know what we know. I would lay bets that there's faculty in your colleges that you have no idea what your line of inquiry is, and they might feel the same way about yours. And here we're all in the same type of a college. So you really need to tell your story. You need to make sure that you're getting the news out on the college websites. We have a way to do that. You should be sharing your information through, if there's any electronic media or marketing that you can share, connect with your alumni group, get those good news things out there. And it's not just you, it's your unit, it's your scholarship, and then also your students. And you need to bear the responsibility of having a pretty good idea of what your department does, so that if somebody asks you, what does Dr. So-and-so do, and what, and how does this individual work in this area, you ought to be able to provide a really good, albeit short, response and answer to their line of inquiry and scholarship. The fourth tip is you need to reach out and collaborate outside the department, college, and profession. It's really neat to build those relationships. It's healthy. It's good for that other faculty member or group of faculty members that you're working with. And sometimes you may be the only one in your department that has a certain line of inquiry, so you still need to take care of what's going on at home, but there might be other individuals that you can work with. And there's a lot of people out that would be more than willing to help you with that. You can invest in looking at seminars in other departments and other colleges and just sitting in on those seminars and learning about what other people are doing. It's relatively low cost investment, but it's a pretty good thing to do. My fifth point is you have to ask, and you have to ask for assistance and advice, opportunities to engage. You don't want to wait for that annual review to ask a question of your unit leader. You don't want to wait until that interim review and ask a question. That's what we're here for. And a lot of times people won't give advice because they don't want to seem condescending or to actually maybe push something on you. So you're sort of caught between maybe a rock and a hard place sometimes, but it doesn't hurt to ask. And I tell them, taught my students that, and my faculty. It's worked really, really well, I think, once you build that relationship and that opportunity to ask. And sometimes ask more than one person to get different opinions, because it may help you make that decision. My sixth point has to do with being a good citizen, one that's committed and loyal to the academy. We work within colleges of agricultural science, within academic units, and then within a larger university. And then we have all these other communities that we work with in our professional organizations and with our stakeholders. And it's something that you need to be aware of. And I will tell you, as worked with this a long time as a department head and as a senior faculty member, you also, for junior faculty, you need to be cautious because you don't want to overcommit yourself. So these are the kinds of things that if somebody's out, I'll give you a couple examples. We had a faculty member one time in our unit, and I was still a faculty member. I wasn't in an administrative position. And this faculty member was out for a health reason. And there were a couple things that I knew this individual did. And as a department head, sometimes you just don't have somebody to pick this up. And so a couple of us got together and went down and talked to the unit leader and said, hey, we can kind of help out a little bit. I'll go with a group of students to DC. Somebody else is going to do this until this person got back on the mend. And so there's a lot of things that you can do that may not be a really large commitment, but it shows that you're part of the department and of the college and also the university. The seventh tip has to do with seeking a mentor, and I have mentors here. You need to have more than one. Sometimes they're not in the college. You may need to have a mentor who is a good mentor, someone who is looking out for you and can remember what it was like to be at a certain stage in your career or a certain academic rank. An example I think I could probably give was Sometimes certain college meetings are not that well attended. If you would talk to somebody who's been around for a long time, they might say, oh, I don't need to go to that meeting. They don't really do much there anyway. But is it important for you to be there as a junior faculty member to understand the culture and meet some other people in that college? So you kind of have to step back and listen to the advice you're getting, and then find somebody that it resonates with you. Some programs will assign a mentor to you. I've never done that. That wasn't our policy in the department. And we just, as I told our faculty, you need to pick more than one and work your way through it and use that mentor. Sometimes we get so busy, you need to just use them, go with a list, come back, go over the list of questions you might have, and then get some more feedback. Very important. Number 8, sometimes we get so busy doing day-to-day type work that a whole semester goes by. And you think, well, I was going to do something in October and I never got to it. Or you step back and you realize that you're doing some things that might be pulling you away from that focus in your scholarship, that you need to be moving down that line, and maybe somebody's giving you a couple hints, and you need to think about that. So taking a reflection on where you are in your career. Are you where you thought you would be 3 years ago? Are you on the right path to be where you kind of want to be in 3 years? And it's kind of important to do that. We get so busy, sometimes we forget. Take a little bit of reflection and think back on where you started and where you want to be. I sometimes when I think about it, I think it hit me the most. I was talking to an incoming class of freshmen this year, and I realized I was 30 years out from when I started my college career, and it was a little bit of a shock. But I've been pretty pleased with how things have worked out, and probably wouldn't change anything at this point. Time management is something you always hear about. Some things work well for other people. They won't work for you. You got to come up with all those types of things to manage your time, and sometimes you just can't manage it. Other times you get back on track and you can kind of take a breath or two, and then something else comes up. So again, it's whatever works for you, but trying to come up with a plan that works at different stages of both your personal and your professional life. I can tell time management was a little tougher when our kids were real young than it is now. So, and the last success is your life is bigger than work, and these are sort of the three things that keep me going and have been very helpful for me throughout my career. And you don't want to have any regrets down the road because you didn't take the chance to take some extra time to spend some time with family and friends. So just kind of keep that in mind as you're working through this. These 3 things in your life outside of work, being successful in that area helps you be a better person at work and contribute to the unit. Okay, my next couple of slides are going to address my view from my role as a department head and associate dean, from hiring and mentoring faculty, working with them as they've gone through the tenure and promotion process. And also at Penn State, we have a process too that's called a post-tenure review. And that means 5 years after your last promotion, you go through a pretty comprehensive review of how things are going for you. And so we sort of had it along the whole continuum. One of the things that you need to do is kind of understand when you come into a position, or even now, as you are a faculty member, what's the criteria for advancement and moving through the various ranks. And not only through the ranks, there's also a lot of different awards that you could look at, such as Distinguished Professor down the road. And so it's nice to know all that within your institution so that you could plan for that in your long-range goals. And just to give you an example, I do like what we have at Penn State. I like the fact that if you're hired on in a tenure line position at the assistant rank, we have a 2-year review, a 4-year review, and then 6 years when you go up for promotion and tenure. And it's very helpful to have those checks in the system, because your packet is looked at by not only the departmental committee and the department head, but also the college committee, and then us as a dean's group, especially in those interim reviews. And that's kind of nice to be able to provide guided feedback on that. The other thing that's important is you really need to begin to develop and update your dossier and keep good records. So in many instances, if I remember back when I was at University of Florida and also here at Penn State, that meant keeping up a dossier for the institution, but also keeping my curriculum vitae updated. So you kind of have to keep really good records. This is the thing where I've seen people not have items in that dossier, and I knew it because I was part of a program that they might have did, and I'm writing back to them and saying, hey, remember that program we did in October? It's not in here. You've got to keep good records, and you've got to figure out a way to take time out of your day to update those records. And day, I mean big day, like your life. One thing I've heard somebody do, and I was never able to do it, but I thought it sounded really good, is an individual said she set aside a couple hours on the birth date of every month. So if she was born on October 6th, on the 6th of every month, she blocked some time. I don't know how she handled weekends, but she blocked some time to update her dossier. And that was sort of in her mind. And every month she was assured of not losing too much time to enter some different things in that dossier. The other thing that's helpful is securing copies of successful dossiers at the stage in career and appointment rank that you have, and use those as benchmarks. Penn State has a professional development seminar annually, and we get permission from faculty who have successfully moved through the system to hand out current copies of their dossier for different appointment levels, and that's always been helpful to have. The last point on this slide is you really need to ask your department head who can help you. I mean, that's what we're here for as department heads, and we need somebody to make good and substantive suggestions. We were lucky in Ag and Extension Education at Penn State that several of our faculty, our senior faculty, had served on the college and also the university promotion and tenure committees at some point in their life, and were able to take this and look at it a little differently and provide some advice. You really can't ask people who are currently in committee situations to review that, but you can ask people who have served in the past, or at least that's what we did here. My next slide goes back to securing successful dossiers. I mentioned that earlier. Also attending those professional development sessions, attending professional development sessions on grant writing, on teaching, on anything that's going to improve your scholarship. You need to be able to put that in there and document it. As part of your assignment, and several of you may have already navigated through this or are working through it, you need to find how teaching, research, and service is assessed and quantified in your college. And so that means if you are required to have courses or extension programs peer evaluated annually or twice annually, then you've got to plan for that, and you've got to find somebody to evaluate. You've got to make sure that it's documented. You don't want to wait until the end and have a whole flurry of peer evaluations if you don't have a system like that in the last year before you go on. That's just sort of one example. If your college or your department requires you to have a portfolio to document your educational experiences, resident education or extension, make sure you find out what you have to put in that portfolio and begin to include pieces of work and documentation and examples so that you're not digging around for it, a couple months before your packet has to go in. The professional development seminars, you might not think they're that important, but they are so valuable, and it really will help you be a better scholar. And plus, you're going to run into people of like rank at these sessions, which really gives you another opportunity to collaborate and engage with others in your area, in the college, or even outside of the college. From a department head perspective, again, these next points, it's important. You need to engage with your professional organization. It's helpful to have a record of committee involvement, leadership, presentation with a defined professional organization. Sometimes people don't always have that, and in our profession we have several. We have the ACE, we have AAAE, we have Extension has professional organizations. So what you have to realize is that when your dossier comes up for review, just about every institution that I know in the profession requires a request of this review from an external reviewer. And it's very helpful to be able to reach out to your colleagues in your different professional organizations to ask them to review your dossier. And so they can also talk about your scholarship that's in the dossier, but they also can testify to that your engagement with that professional organization. Again, you don't want to overdo it. This is all based upon, there's some rank and time issues here of when you can put the amount of service in and when you can't. And that's why you got to have a good mentor. The call for external review is different at every institution that we have. So again, it would be good to know that, because your colleague at another institution might say, oh, well, I contacted my external reviewers, and then you're at a place where they say, oh my gosh, you can't even know who wrote the letters, your external reviewer, in your folder. The other thing you want to try and do is secure and seek recognition for your scholarship in teaching and learning, and also in research. You may need to nominate yourself. You may need to bring an award nomination to your department head or somebody into the unit, or a peer, and say, would you be willing to do this for me? Because some programs don't have an identified awards committee. So you need to get recognized for the good work that you do, and don't be humble. You've probably have a lot of colleagues who'd be willing to work with you. Mentioned being a good citizen, talked about that earlier. What do others think of you? Are you so focused on getting your work done that you walk down the hall and sometimes you forget to stop and say hello? It's little stuff like that you kind of have to step back and realize how others perceive you. The politics, it's important, and hopefully you have a certain level of intuition and understanding as you navigate the system in your profession and your department and your college. It helps to have a good mentor. The other thing, from a political standpoint, it helps to have a discussion with the department head too about certain things. Are there certain committees that maybe you've been asked to serve on that department head knows that they are really, really a lot of work, and maybe there's other things that you can help contribute to that might not be as difficult or as time-consuming to get involved. So as you work through rank, you will have the opportunity to step forward and be a good citizen and work within that academy at different levels. The last 3 points, learn about other people in the college or in your academic unit. Can you go visit with somebody whose primary appointment is in extension or research, and they're working with intergenerational programs, and that's not even an area you know anything about? Can you go work with somebody who's doing work with 4-H and youth development? Your primary appointment might be in teacher education or adult education. So just kind of get out and show some interest and learn a little bit more about what other people are doing. It's nice, and you really, really will enjoy it. The last one is I've definitely read more college and university strategic plans over the past years than I did in the beginning of my career. But it's kind of interesting to read that and maybe take a step back and look and see, how are you contributing? Are you helping contribute to student success? How is that working? Just kind of gives you a little bit of see where you fit into the larger system. The other thing I would say is take a look at our offices at the associate dean level, and in teaching, research, and extension. And are we offering any opportunities, or do we offer any functions that you would be interested in? Any activities? For example, in our office in undergrad education, we help support undergraduate research in partnership with our graduate education office. So you might have students that want to do undergraduate research. We support student activities funding. We support international programs. We have student awards and teaching awards, and it's a really great place to be. And then just taking time to come in and visit with us would be great to help you be a successful faculty member. And so just in closing, I did cover these 10 tips for success. And I want you to remember from the big perspective is that when we make a faculty hire, we hire that faculty member to be successful in our institution for anywhere between 25 and 30. So we want to help you succeed. You need to ask for assistance and guidance, and you need to have fun. It's a great journey, and thank you.
Dr. Hoover, thank you very much. A couple of takeaway points that I heard as I listened was the idea to go visit and look at other websites. I think sometimes we forget to do that, and I think that that's an excellent point. And then also the whole idea of reflecting. I think the other thing is sometimes it's like you said about forgetting to say hello to someone because you're so busy trying to get your items done. I think that kind of ties in there with the reflection too. I think sometimes we do that too. So thank you very much for sharing these tips and recommendations. I heard all kinds of things that I think we can apply. So thank you for taking time out of your day. I really appreciate it.